very conscious of. Welcome everybody. It's been very interesting since I sent the email out a couple of hours ago for this session. I've been in this room since then, and we've had probably about 20 people here. But I think it's the time zone thing. That's why I put the time clock in there. So hopefully a few more people will return back to us and be able to participate. So I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you guys have not done it yet, you can go and download the work books for this workshop. And I'll just put the link in again here. So everyone's got that. And welcome, Susan.
It's great to be here.
We'll give it a couple of minutes because, like I say, we've had tons of people coming in and out. I guess, if it's not the right time for them, not the right time for them. But Rachel, I know you've been in here a little while, so thank you for that. So, yeah, we'll give it a couple of minutes and then we'll get started. I don't think there's anything else that we need. I'm recording screen and I've got the workbook on the right hand side, so I'll try and follow the workbook through for the replay. But maybe we can get started because we do have a limited amount of time. Okay, let's start, Susan. Okay. So welcome to this workshop on Organize Anything with Susan. Susan is a member of our Virtual CoWorking Space, and she is our resident expert on organization and planning and getting straight. And this spans from things like your home office, anything that you want to organize at home, basically, and also anything that you want to organize digitally online. So the purpose of this workshop, I'm going to get Susan to explain that to you now, but I'm just going to do this brief introduction. And for the first time ever, I'm going to be keeping my mouth shut and not talking. And I am going to let Susan take over. So Susan, if you want to go into full camera mode, we'd love to see you a little bit bigger. And I'll hand over to you, my darling.
Okay. Whoops, the cam went off.
Ooh.
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
All right. So this whole workshop is about how we always have projects we want to tackle, but we never seem to get around to them. And the reason I developed my workbook was to help build a foundation. So I'm really big on having a solid foundation when you need to tackle something, and it walks you through the steps and gives you a little information. So there's an introduction that kind of talks about why are you doing this? This is going to help you. And then we want to make sure that we're doing this for ourselves and not for somebody else. So our first section is the why. And there is, again, mindset is so important. You need to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. And so we walk through a little bit of why are you doing this? Is it important to you? What are the reasons? Just so you have a better understanding of it. And then we can walk through the questions. So I picked a project which was to organize digital files, which I think is something that a lot of us can relate to because we somehow end up with files in many different places. So I'm going to walk through the questions on the why page of the workbook, and then let you know my answers and a little bit of why I put them down, the why, so why I put them down. So the first one is to write down the task or project, and I wrote down that I needed to tackle the organization of my digital files that I had in various places. So I had some on Google Drive, I had some on some thumb or travel drives, I had some on my desktop, and also in Dropbox. So trying to remember where everything was hard. So that's the project I chose. And then why this was important to me is because there's files all over the place, and I can't seem to find them easily, and I'm wasting a lot of time. There's nothing worse than trying to find something, even if it's physical, like your keys or something, you spend 15 minutes looking for them. So then the next part is to write down anything that you think could be outsourced or delegated or stopped. And when I started filling this out, I didn't really see anything that I could do, that I could stop or delegate or outsource. And then, well, I shouldn't say that. I didn't see anything that I could delegate or outsource, but what I could stop, or what I wanted to stop, was putting files in random places. Then I set a deadline. It says set a deadline of approximately 2 weeks to complete all of these actions. And since I'm not really delegating or outsourcing, although I am stopping, I went forward to the next step, which was review my why and ensure it aligns with the ultimate outcome that you wish to achieve. And my ultimate outcome is to be able to find my files and access them easily. So that's definitely in alignment. So then took some time to do that. And by the way, when you're filling this out, it's important to think about the answers when you're writing through the workbook. You don't want to just, oh, I got to get this done and start just flying off with any kind of answer. Really think it through, because that will help your success. This is what this is all about, is finding success in organizing something or tackling a project or whatever it is. So next is our what. And because I have my why down, I have a pretty good handle about what I want to do. I know why I want to do it and what I want to do. So what is the one item that's truly bothering me that has not been started and or completed? And like I said before, I can't find my documents. I'm looking for them. I don't know where I've put them. I think I know. I waste a lot of time searching for things. So what steps could I take to that would enable me to actually begin? And so that would be setting aside some time to work on this and making a list of where all the files and documents are. So that'll take a little bit of time. I got to figure out, do I have a bunch of travel drives? So I want to have those handy. Do I know where the list of all the files are on my desktop, in Google Drive, and or on Dropbox? And do I have a clear picture of what's necessary? I'm pretty sure I do. I know that I need to figure out where all they are, where everything is located, but it seems really large, and I think that's why I'm procrastinating. So I asked myself, what time can I dedicate to this task or project? And I figured out, looking at my calendar, that I could probably block out 30 minutes twice a week to work on it. I don't want to get overwhelmed, so I'm taking a smaller block of time. And I also don't want to say, oh, I'm going to work on it every day till I get it done, because that's not realistic. So what is my end outcome or end result? And that would be ease of accessing the files when I need them. So then I have to look at what I can do to prepare ahead of time and start getting that in order so that I have a smooth process. So obviously I'm going to write down the times that I picked, and I'm going to stick to it. I realize this could be a long project, so I'm not going to get discouraged if I don't make as much progress as I think I should. I'm just going to keep steadily going along. And then I'm going to keep telling myself, this is going to be amazing. When this is complete, I'm going to feel great, and it's going to be really, really good. So that's our what. And then we get to our when. So this ties in with the why and the what. And so when am I going to do this? So I'm going to write down, I'm going to think about how I work. Am I more productive in the morning, afternoon, the evening? What's the best time for me? Do I like longer periods of time or shorter periods of time? How do I best work? And maybe a combination of the two. But for me, I figured out 30 minutes is a great time. I can concentrate, I can focus, and twice a week. And then I just looked at the days, and I like the mornings. I'm more productive in the mornings. And so I just kind of looked out my calendar and figured out what are the days and the times that I can work out for the most part for the next few weeks to get a start on this project. So then I did pick my particular day, which was Mondays and Wednesdays, about 9 a.m. That's my freest time. It's early enough. I can get it done. So I already blocked out the times on my calendar and for the next couple of weeks so that I could make sure I could start it. And then I wrote down the date and the time that I'm going to begin. So right in my calendar, I went to the calendar and I'm starting on June 3rd. And that's a Monday. And it can be helpful to have an accountability partner that you can report out to. So I picked my sister and I'm going to tell her this is what I'm doing and I'm going to report out to you my progress. So that helps me be accountable. So every Wednesday after I get done with Monday and Wednesday, I'll just send her a little report and said, this is what I did. So I have an accountability partner. So that is the 3 things we're going to start with this week. And so that's our why, what, and where. And so that helps me build a strong foundation to know what I want to do. It helps me be aligned with the goal. And I've taken the time to write down the things and think it through. Sometimes you can, like I said, you don't want to just bust out any answer because you want to get through the worksheet, but you want to think about what really works for you. So that's pretty much what I've got. And I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Susan. That was awesome. And don't forget, guys, we're going to go through the second half of this workshop next week. So if you guys have any questions about the why, what, and when, do feel free to pop them in the chat or come on video and audio. For me, I thought a really good point you made there was about time procrastination, basically. You know, where we see this big task and it's so big and so overwhelming that we tend not to even want to think about it. So I'll do that another time, or I'll do that when I've got more time. And the thing is, I think the important point of this is to know that nobody ever just suddenly has more time. You know? Like there's not going to be like that. I suppose if you're working a job and then you took a holiday and you dedicated yourself to it, that's one thing. But when we have this, it's like kind of looking at a mountain and then just keep staring at the mountain, not wanting to take that first step because you're too busy thinking about the top of it. So I think the time procrastination thing is sorry, you got someone coming in. Is that okay?
Yeah.
The time procrastination thing for me was a big thing because I think I tend to do that. If it's too big, I'm like, move it to the bottom of the list, move it to the bottom of the list. And I end up, it takes me forever to get there. But I think if you break it down so it isn't such a big task and you put milestones in it, then you're not tackling that big mountain. You're doing a piece. And like you said, you've got to be your own cheerleader. You've got to give yourself like a certain amount of reward, for doing that. So if you break it down into pieces and then you organize it into these chunks, and then you say to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to do this. And then once I get that done, that's a piece of it out of the way and a piece of it done, rather than I'm going to get done in 6 months and I don't even want to start, So that was a big thing, and I think that's nice to frame it that way. And definitely, like, giving yourself a pat on the back and, being your best cheerleader in this stuff is really good. And my friend, what you said as well about being prepared also is super important, because my friend recently, she's definitely not the most organized person. She tends to buy a lot of stuff and then it's got no place in her house for it and things like that. So she decided to get really, really super organized, and she had a week off school. She's a teacher. So she basically went out and did all the preparation because she knew if she did that, she wouldn't be able to get out of it. So she literally went out and bought all of the boxes, all of the labels, all of the things that she was going to need, all of the bags to organize. She spent, quite a fair amount of money on this. And she's like, I've bought all this stuff now. It's sat there in my house, waiting to, be done. So now I absolutely have to do it. And she did. So she planned it all out. She was doing it one bag at a time and one box at a time and things like that, just organizing until she'd filled all her boxes, labeled them all up and put them away. And I suppose if you're thinking about that in terms of digital organization, like you were saying about or if you've got files in Google Drive and files in Dropbox and files here and things like that, you know, one way of breaking that down would be to say, okay, I'm carving this amount of time out. You know, I've got this big job and it's thousands of files, but now I'm just going to focus on Dropbox. And then once I've done Dropbox, then I'm going to focus on, you know, the Drive. And I would say if you're going to use other systems or tools or anything like that, just look at all the tools you need and invest in them. Because once you've invested in them, it's kind of like spurring you on to say, right, now I've got to get this done, you know. That always works for me. So now I tend to do the same thing. If I want to get something done, I'll tend to then get the stuff that I need, and then I'm like, okay, this weekend it's going to happen, you know, because I've got it now, it's done, and I can't sit there looking at this. So that was a really nice ad. Again, if anybody's got any questions, do feel free to put them in the chat. Another thing another thing I really wanted to mention was how you mentioned about affirming the feeling of when it's all done. And I think we were talking ourselves about this before, about how a lot of this is linked to mindset. And, you know, to, you know, like that thing, like it's a huge mountain and I don't even want to start thinking about climbing it, you know. that's a mindset. So if you put things in place that's going to shift your mindset, you'll be able to find that you can organize things much better. And also you'll have much more clarity as to think about, you know, like your workbook is great because it does walk through the steps of breaking it down, piecing it all out. You know, it becomes less overwhelming and you can really get your head around it, you know. So for me, that was really good. But when you said about affirming the feeling, like how are you going to actually feel when you accomplish this? Like, that's really huge. So my friend who's not been able to organise her stuff for ages, you know, because it took her so long and she just decided to do it, she felt so good at the end. She felt like, wow, this is fantastic. I've got it, I've accomplished it. And I think if you can step into that feeling a little bit before, then, and that's also with anything, it's not just with organisation. If you know, it's like we always talk about in our accountability about visualization and about goals and things like that. It's almost like you have to see everything completely organized, completely finished, you know, you have to see it exactly how you imagine it to be once it is organized and done in your mind's eye before you actually do it. Is that something you would agree on?
Oh, absolutely. You do. And also making sure you're committed to it for yourself. That's also part of the mindset, because you need to be wanting to do it for you and not for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it has to be something that you actually really want to do. Otherwise, it will be an uphill struggle. But getting to that point of actually, like, wanting to do it for you rather than procrastinating on it because you think that's for yourself as well, because you're not doing it, you're not putting all the effort in. I think that visualization and having that end goal and seeing it all, how it's going to be at the end, but also then having something to look forward to at the end. And I think that's really important. You know, it's kind of like if you go on a weight loss journey, you know, and you know, this is something I do if I'm trying to lose weight. I'll always have that one really nice piece of clothing that I know at the end I'll be able to get into, and that will be my goal. You know, I'll visualize myself in this piece of clothing, and I'll want to get there because I want to look like that. I want to be able to put this item of clothing on, and I want it to be done and finished. So I hold on to that vision as I'm going through. So if you say to yourself, you know, in terms of organization, let's say you're organizing a room, you know, imagine how that room's going to look. You know,
yes.
Are you going to add any nice plants to it? Are you going to put a nice diffuser in it? You know, how are you going to feel once it's all organized? And maybe you want to repaint it afterwards and things like that. And how are you going to use the space afterwards? and how are you going to feel good in that space? This is also really important. Megan says totally. Yes, absolutely. So I would definitely say those are like several really key points I think we need to take away from this session. And I'm sorry about my dog, if he's barking out there. Megan says that's how I needed to approach my weight loss, especially because I had a big goal. Yeah, it's when you have a big goal like that, it's like a mountain. You do have to keep doing it. And also as well, if it is weight loss, you know, I definitely think if you've got, like if you do have such a huge goal, you know, and I know this is an organisation workshop, but I think it works the same way. You know, we're organising our bodies here. But if you do have such a huge goal and you say to yourself, okay, well, I have, I don't know what you use in America, it's pounds, but we have stone in England, or let's say kilos or whatever, let's say pounds, okay? So let's say you have 100 pounds to lose. You know, maybe at every 25 pounds, you want to buy yourself a new outfit so you can say, right, I've come this far and I'm not going back to the way it was before, you know, and another 25 pounds, buy yourself another outfit, and that, you know, until you've made it. And you could probably do the same as well with the organisation if you really thought about it. You know, how am I going to reward myself for this task? How am I going to reward myself for this project and getting this done? You know, and maybe if you're organising files and things like that, you say, right, I'm going to do Dropbox, and then I'm going to buy myself this, you know, like bottle of champagne or something like that, and then I'm going to get on to the next one, you know. Boop. So yeah, I think it's really good. I think definitely the reward system really works well, and I think definitely keeping in mind the reward system of how it's going to be at the end. And you know, imagine your desktop is completely clear, and you know, like it is a really nice feeling. I hate my desktop sometimes, and I'm just like, oh my god, it needs attention now. And you know, you need a plan for that. Even if it's just your desktop, something so small, you need a plan for it. Like, how am I going to organize my desktop? You know, am I going to move my files into my documents? Am I going to, you know, what kind of wallpaper am I going to put out? I think it's really interesting sometimes when you organize a desktop and you see these wallpapers with compartments in them, so you can kind of like drag and move files into the screen. I definitely want to try that and maybe make some of those because I find them quite exciting. But yeah, I think that was some really, really good points and some really good tips. Looking forward to next week because I feel like we're actually going to get into the nitty-gritty of, you know, how it's all going to come together and things like that.
Yes, and a lot of it is the preparation and committing to yourself. If you set aside those blocks of time, use them. Yeah. Don't just say, oh, well, that's just for me. I'll go do this or I'll go do that. Like, take advantage of what you've taken the time to plan, and don't give up on yourself, and know that. And then, like I said, if it's a big project, say, well, that's okay. I've started, right? Use that as your momentum to keep going forward and not lose hope, and know that it might take a little longer than I think or something, but I've started it and I'm going to keep going till it's done.
Yeah, that's definitely actually the principles or one of the bases of the new one sourcing program that I put together, because I felt like sometimes if people were going to go through this training, they were feeling like, oh my god, it's just like this long stretch of training to get to the end. So I thought to myself, how am I going to make this more manageable for people? So I broke the training all down into levels. So now we have these 6 levels, and it's like, okay, I'm just going to, you know, like I'll focus on level 1, that's done. There's only 5 more to go, you know, I'll do the next one, level 2.
Yes.
Only 4 more to go, you know, and you reward yourself at the end of each level, and you've learned something new, and you've made another step forward in your business. And actually the one sourcing thing, guys, as well, is also going to help you keep very organized in your approach to building your VA business as well. So do check that out if you haven't seen it so far. It's on virtualmissfriday.com/one sourcing. So, yeah, I think that's it from me. That's all I have to say about that. I found it very, very helpful. You know, do your prep, get your head around it. break it down into smaller pieces if it is feeling overwhelming. Make sure you give yourself a reward at some point. Make sure you step into the feeling of having it at the end and what it's going to be like at the end. And then come back here to next week for the next part, where we'll be meeting back here at the same time, where we're going to be going through the where and the how, and then the conclusion of this process. So if you want to get started on your own project, don't forget you can use the link in the chat box. You can go and download the workbook from Susan's website. She's got a blank workbook in there for you if you want to just fill in the blanks yourself. And she's also put the example in there for you if you want to see how Susan's project has been laid out and put together. So again, anything you have to tackle, any kind of project, go through these steps. Doesn't matter if it's big or small, but just go through these steps, and I think it will really, it makes the whole process a lot more productive, because you actually, you're not sitting there thinking, oh my God, where do I start? Which you do with most things, where do I begin? You actually have the steps and the things that you need in order to move forward with it. So go get those workbooks and come back here next week at the same time, where we're going to be finishing this off with Susan. Susan, do you have any final words before we leave?
No, just don't give up on yourself. You can do this. Feel good about what you've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulate yourself.
Yeah, even if you're somebody who constantly says to yourself, oh, that's not me, I'm not an organized person, don't keep affirming that belief in yourself. Start today by saying, I've got a process now, I know how to do it, I know how to work through it, so I'm going to just make that start, and I'm not going to let myself down.
Good deal.
Okay, Susan, thank you so much
for being
here today. We will see you back here, same time, same place next week. Take care, guys.
All right, thanks.